Okay, and we're live. Okay, here we are. Well, welcome, Sheleila. Okay.
Welcome.
You said you pronounce it like Delilah, but with a sh.
That's it.
Okay. So I overheard a conversation when you were talking to some folks the other day, and you were involved in bodybuilding, which is a bit. It seems a bit of an odd thing for somebody who works as an account in the accounting profession in one of the big four banks. Could you just
Yeah,
like join those dots for us?
sure. I don't even know where to start. Yeah, so I wasn't, for what it's worth, physique bodybuilding. It was the bikini comps. But I was getting into fitness. I had just moved back from the States. I lived in the States for a semester studying abroad, and I'd put on a little bit of weight. And when I moved back here, a friend of mine was really into like watching these shows and really into her fitness, and I decided to join along and go to the gym, and I got a personal trainer. And then one day I had this bright idea that I would compete. So in, I think it was 8 weeks for my first comp, because I did two separate ones. But in 8 weeks, I dieted, I trained really hard, and I got on stage. Two different times. So I did it 1 year with IFBB, and then the second year I did it with INBA. And I came third the second year, which I was super proud of. And I did that in 7 weeks as well. Just a challenge. I think when I get an idea, I know I can do it, and then I just do it.
A friend of ours, a lady friend of ours, I
Yeah.
think she did the same thing. But she's in her 50s. I won't mention her name, of course, but she suddenly did this.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think it triggers. So I think it triggers a different part of your brain, I think, because once you commit to it and you start doing it, and you can see the progress every week. If you're tracking it, you can see it, and then I don't know, something happens. It's magic.
so have you always been a bit like that, where you sort of get a thought and
Yeah.
you just get off to realize the thought? Because you said where did you travel to? You've traveled to many countries, haven't you?
Yeah, I've traveled to about 32 countries, so my feet are very itchy right now. It's been about, I think, 2-3 years since I've gone overseas anywhere. Um, but yeah, been to about 32 countries, lived in the States for a semester, lived in Canada for a couple of years. Big traveler. I love it.
So what's the best place so far in your travels?
I would have to say my favorite place is Montenegro. There's a little town in Montenegro called Kotor,
Okay.
and it's beautiful. There's like a castle that's like embedded in the mountain that you can climb up.
Okay.
It's stunning, and it's mountain meets ocean, and I love the two. I love oceans and I love mountains. Yeah.
Okay. So what were you doing over at all these places? You were studying? Was that traveling and studying?
Only in the States. I lived in North Carolina for a semester. But no, other than that, the other 30 odd countries was just annual leave, visiting different countries. No, I lie. In 2014, I think, I quit my job and I backpacked around Europe for 6 months. So that, yeah, I guess that's a part of it. I just, traveled. In Canada, I worked as well. Um,
What,
worked
for a bank? You always worked
no
in
as,
banks.
as a personal trainer, Mike.
The personal trainer. Okay.
Personal trainer. I decided I was going to take a break from the corporate world. Got my personal training certificate, and then when I was in Canada, I did that for a little
Okay.
bit. Yeah, I do a lot of
So
random.
when you did the bodybuilding stuff, did you like personal train yourself or what?
Yeah, so after the first competition, I was fascinated by how we can transform the body. So I studied my Cert 3 and Cert 4 at TAFE or online. And then for the second comp, I got a nutritionist to help me with the diet, and I did all my training plans. And I competed, the second time based on my own knowledge.
But
fascinating.
in the description for the interview, there was 2 types of competitions you were in. What's the difference between this?
Different like federations. So I guess different like membership bodies. And they all kind of maybe focus on different things. So IFBB, I don't even know what it really is. I don't know what it stands for anymore. But that was more of a muscular bikini body type. And then INBA was natural, more natural, softer.
Okay. But I assume that both of these are sort of like non-steroidal, non-ped
I mean,
organizations.
IFBB is probably questionable. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the INBA was, I think, specifically natural. So
Do
everyone
they
was
test
tested.
you?
Winners got tested.
Oh, do they?
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And do they get what's the pass rate on that?
I have no idea. I don't think I don't know if anyone. I don't know. I've got no idea. I haven't read about it. I haven't heard any interesting stories or anything. So I'm not sure.
So when you were traveling, were you starting to write or doing creative stuff while you were traveling?
Yeah, so my first novel, I actually got that idea when I was traveling for that 6 months. I was backpacking and I was in India and I found myself on the beach in India with a piece of paper and a pen. And I said, I just had this idea, I'm going to write a novel. And I started with a paper and pen, writing it down. And my partner at the time told me it was a silly idea. And I actually ripped it up. And I was like, you're right, that's so silly. Who just writes a novel? And we broke up 6 months later and I moved to Canada. And I picked that pen back up and I started writing it. And 3 years later, I had published it.
Did you remember what the first line was you wrote the first time you wrote it on the beach?
Oh, I have a feeling. Do you know, I actually have a feeling it's still the same line that's in the book.
Oh, okay.
I actually do. I'll read it out because it's about.
Good.
Yeah, it always started with a boss calling for the protagonist. So it always started with I could hear someone faintly calling my name. Always started with that.
Show us the book. Put it up for what is the book?
So that's my first novel, Strayed Love, which is currently I'm actually rewriting it with KMD as part of a trilogy. So I will have it rewritten and published, I think, in a few months.
So what's it about?
It's about a woman who finds herself. So she, I don't want to give too much away, but she finds herself in a bit of a rut at home. And so she goes traveling. She goes to Iceland, London, Scotland, and Hawaii. And she finds herself again. So I think it's got a bit of an eat, pray, love kind of vibe. But it's different because it's mine.
So is this sort of based upon your own experiences or?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's based on all experiences I've had, all places that I've been before. So yes. Yeah.
So is it a novel or is it a biography, autobiography? What?
Yes, I've called it a novel. I say it's a novel because there is a little bit that's dramatized or there's a bit that's fictional, but I guess the experiences and the emotions are the same, but I could have changed the story around it a little bit. So yeah, it is a fictional novel, but it is based on my own experiences.
And what else creative were you doing in your travels?
Oh, what other? Nothing while I was traveling. I was just traveling, traveling and writing. And then when I moved home is when I actually finished the novel and had it published. Yeah.
But,
So
home is Perth, Western Australia.
home is Perth. Yep. Home is Perth.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So it's
Because I
been,
know that from your website, you do a lot of other creative stuff.
yeah. So
Can you
I
talk a
paint
bit
as
about
well.
the other stuff you do?
Yeah, sure. I paint as well. I sketch. And that was that was on a whim as well, actually. I decided one day I absolutely love painting. So that's why I noticed the one in your background. I just love them. And I've always been quite obsessed. If you ever saw me traveling and at an art gallery, I would be able to spend hours there. And I was
Okay.
so fascinated by how painters created or how artists drew. So I decided to seek a mentor here in Perth, and I, yeah, learned how to draw. I kind of went through stages. So with him, you needed to learn the basics first. You couldn't go straight into painting. You needed to learn how to draw. So I've been doing that for probably 2.5 years, going on to 3 years this year. And yeah, I guess the drawing, I loved it so much, and then it grew to painting. So now I can sketch realism and I paint. I have a personal love for large abstract pieces. So I go between a bit of, yeah, I like sketching realism, but then I like painting abstract, and then, yeah, they're my favorite. So I do that in my spare time, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Which you probably have a lot of, with your corporate job. Huh?
Heaps.
But particularly as we're getting to the end of the financial year, you must be
Oh,
quite busy. Yeah?
yes, it's super busy. Everyone wants everything done yesterday. But I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of businesses now going into the end of the financial year.
Yeah, this painting above me is a little bit different. I can throw the camera back, but it's a guy with a guitar. The lady who did it, she did it with spray cans.
Ah, yeah. The
She
texture
just,
is interesting. It's very like light.
yeah, she gets spray cans and does it. I was like, okay,
Wow.
yeah,
Show me.
yeah. So, but I don't, I don't draw. So just explain or paint.
Mm.
So just explain to me, what do you like to do best? So, it's Saturday morning, Sunday morning. What do you want
Yeah.
to do? Do you want to write your your novel? Do you want to draw? Do you want to paint?
I like painting during the day, and I like writing at nighttime. For some reason, I've always written at night. I don't write during the day. What do you do, Mike, actually? Do you when do you write?
Well, we're up at 5:30 here. My
Yeah.
wife's out the door by 6:30, and then I sit
Mm.
down and I write probably till about 9:30.
Mm.
Yeah,
You do
and
morning.
I'm sharper then.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something when the world goes to sleep, but I guess in the morning sometimes the world is asleep, so it's opposite. But
Yeah. Look,
yeah,
don't forget that. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm walking around thinking about story all the time.
about different stories.
No, about story, how the story's progressing.
Ah,
Uh,
yeah,
Particularly with the nature of, I write crime thrillers, so
yeah,
when they, I've got to also think, is that logical?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I do, to be honest. I think I just download it. It just comes to me, and I download it when I start writing. And if I get different ideas throughout the day, I'll write it on my phone. Um,
Okay.
generally, yeah. I think
No,
I managed to compartmentalize it, to be honest.
but when you write your book, a novel,
Mm.
they always ask the question: are you a plotter or a pantser? Do you write a plot down with all the like a storyboard, or do you do it by the seat of your pants and just go?
Yeah, I just seat in my pants and just go. Yeah, I
How does that
just
work for you when you have to do the editing and you look back?
um when I like do my like editing, my rereads, I tend to I think it naturally flows as I write it. But then, yeah, actually, because I did my first novel, it just did flow. It did flow. But then the editor did tell me when there were things missing. And I was able to go back and then kind of, I guess, add more description, add more depth, which I've been able to do again this second time around. But yeah, I must already have the story in my head when I start. I must already have like the skeleton of it. And then
I do. I know that. I have the story in my head.
yeah.
But my editor, I remember one time the editor came back to me and said, Isn't this woman a blonde?
Is this woman what? Shannon?
Isn't this woman a blonde? Like page 150, isn't this woman a blonde? And as soon as she had like, she's a brunette. I thought, dear, okay.
Yeah. I do actually, funny you say that, I do write notes now. So when I first wrote my novel, I didn't know what I was doing because I had no education in writing or anything like that. So I went ahead and wrote it. And I accidentally left like my mother's name in it. I left my stepdad's name in it. I just didn't have any kind of, I think, summary of what I was doing or plan. And so after I self-published it, I went back and I wrote down notes like whose sister was whose brother was who, what's everyone's names, what do they all look like? Because when I originally wrote it, I didn't have that plan. So I think it's going to make the second book much easier now because I kind of know what I'm doing, or there's a plan and there's a yeah.
But where did you get your knowledge to write? I mean, let's come back to your physical training. I mean, you went off and let's say you had to do a bicep curl. No, that's an easy one to understand. And as you know, as well as I, there's a way to do a bicep curl. There's a way not to do a bicep curl.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a way to write, and there's a way not to write. So how did you learn? Did you find a personal trainer in writing? I guess I'm asking.
No, I just wrote with no education behind it. The only writing I ever did was in high school, TE, and that was it. I remember my teachers used to say I was really good at it, but I kind of took it with a grain of salt. I didn't really know. And then, of course, I went on to study commerce, which was all business and math. So, yeah, I didn't have any education. I didn't seek a mentor, which I think I should have. And, yeah, I just wrote. And then the editor that I hired, because I couldn't find a publisher for my book the first time around. So the editor I hired, I got her to give me insight into it. So she came back with a lot of feedback. So she essentially trained me how to become a better writer. And then from her edits and then me rereading, it was a very long process now that I'm thinking about it. I learned from rereading what she edited, if that makes sense. And then I Googling, like even when it comes to paragraph and, characters and plots, I probably did a lot of Googling and self-teaching. But that's all that it was. And also reading, actually. I would say that maybe I'll say a lot of my mentors are probably other authors because I picked things up from other authors and things that I like, I have used myself. So I think that was probably how I've learned as well from reading.
Well, there is an expression, you got to read a lot and write a lot.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is not uncommon, is that, and I'm probably as guilty because I just had a lot of notes and just sat down and did it, And when I went back and it looked pretty dreadful. So, and I always thought, with my own academic things, well, let's take you. Well, let's pick on you rather than me.
Sure, why not?
So, I mean, here you are. You went up to do the bodybuilding stuff, and you learned how to do it, and how to do all the exercises correctly. Okay. Now, when it came to accounting, you didn't just Google and say, okay, the debits are on this side and the credits on the other side. How hard can it be? Yeah, you didn't do that, did you? Okay. So you did. It took years and years and years. But for some reason, when it comes to writing, we're all guilty. We all go, I'll just write. I mean, I've read a lot of books. I can write. I'll just sit down and write.
Yeah.
Right? But I think everybody who we know, has done it the same way. I find, and I might give a little comment here, is that you ought to be careful if you find a mentor as to what style of writing they actually do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, some of the people, maybe he's not watching it, but he's a literary writer.
Yeah.
Mine are not literary novels.
Yeah.
They're really like movie chapters, movie scenes. So it's difficult. So I don't know how how many chapters have you got in your stories? How many pages, how many chapters typically do you get?
30 small chapters.
And how many pages?
I'm going to check. I don't know off by heart. 206.
Okay, 206. So that's about, what do you say, 30? It's about 7 pages a chapter.
Oh, you're testing me here.
No. Okay.
Well, like 3 normal pages. So yeah, 6, 7, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to find out what works for your audience. So what actually is your audience then? People like you? Who?
Yeah, I would say women between the ages of 20 and 40. Yeah, because even when I did write the original novel, I had a 3-day book launch at the Every Woman Expo. And that was pretty much the age range of women that reached out to me after. So I had, women in their 20s, and then I had women, in their 40s, 50s even. I remember having one lady reach out to me, and she was questioning her marriage. I didn't know how to give her advice, and I told her that because she was a little bit confused. And I think what I realized about that is we really take how we read stories is really, we read it and we get what we need. It's not necessarily always what the writer writes. So I probably learned that very early on in my journey. But yeah, she was probably in her 50s. So yeah, I think it was about that range. It's for any woman that really wants to, I think, questions, where they're at or what they want to do, or even tips and tricks on how to travel and navigate it as a single woman as well. I put a lot of that in the rewrite of it. So the second edition will have a lot more of the things that I did when it came to traveling solo.
And what about men?
I mean, look, if men want to read it, sure.
No, but I mean, at your expo, did you get a lot of men turning up, or was it?
I didn't have one male buy my book at the expo, but then I had a lot of support from like male friends after. So men did read it. My partner's read it. He said it was probably the first book he's ever finished. I don't know if he's just said it because he loves me, but like he read it and he said it was really good. So look, men can read it too.
Okay. All right. But then with your painting, is it your balance with the painting now? So have you got any small paintings there nearby?
No, I don't actually. No.
Where are they, on the wall or what?
Yeah. My art studio is half of our lounge room, so they are downstairs and I'm in my office.
Okay.
Yeah. I should have brought some. I brought all my books. That's the main thing I had here.
Yeah, What other books do you have there to tell us about?
Yeah, so I have a children's book. So The Quacking Frog.
The Cracking Frog.
The Quacking.
Quacking, a quacking frog. Yeah.
Quacking. Do you know that the frogs in the southwest of Australia quack, and it's the only place in the world where they quack?
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, in the
Where is
southwest.
that? Down in the southwest.
In the southwest, yep,
Okay.
of WA. So my mum actually owns the Quacking Frog Teapot Shed down south, the home of 5,000 teapots. And so when she started up her quirky little shed, I said, why don't we write a book for it? So I did. I wrote a children's book about a frog that quacks, and he gets teased for quacking. So he goes on a journey to find other frogs that quack.
Okay. Where's this tea shop? We might pop in on our travels.
Yeah, it's in Boyup. Definitely pop in.
Boyup.
Boyup Brook.
Okay.
Boyup Brook. So next to about half an hour from Bridgetown.
Oh, over that way. Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
yeah, Bridgetown way.
And you find it quite easy to slip from the earlier book to a children's book?
Yeah, I think that was an interesting journey in itself as well, because I had a story in mind, and then it was really amazing finding an illustrator to turn the book to life through the images. Like, I'll show you. Just, I don't know, it was just fascinating how just a few words, and I don't know, it really it's wonderful. The books are for ages around, I think it was 4 to 7 or 4 to 9.
Okay.
So, small writing, but enough writing for, I think, a 4-year-old to read.
Okay.
Yeah, but
and what else you got up there to the left?
what else have I got? So the book after that, I've got 2 anthologies that I didn't compile, but I was a co-author in. So the Fifo Wives' Tales, written by Yasmin Walter, or compiled by Yasmin Walter. And that's the story of 20 Fifo wives, or I'm not married yet, but Nick's onto it. And it's different experiences of the Fifo industry. So women that are working in it, or their partners work in it, or I think those are the 2 main ones, really. So yeah, that's about the Fifo.
So what was your role? Did you contribute a chapter? Or?
Yep. So I contributed a chapter because my partner's Fifo, so he's away at the moment on a 1-on-1 roster, and he's been doing that for a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Keep going. What else you got there?
And the next one is compiled by Cherie Shonin and Yasmin Walter. That's Love, Bruises and Bullshit. That's also an anthology, and I have contributed to that as well. And that's stories about domestic violence. So not a fun one compared to the other 3, but an important one nonetheless.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are my books.
Okay. Well, yeah. So where are you going to go from here with your books? What's next? I mean, you're going to do another novel, another kids' book,
another anthology.
Another anthology, right?
Yeah. So my plan. Well, I've signed with KMD for a trilogy, and that's the rewrite of the first novel. I'll be doing that in a trilogy. So that's I guess starting this year. I hope the second book will be available. I'm hoping this year, but I think it might be also early next year. And then I would also like to do another anthology about women in corporate. So I think that's really important to me as well. So those are my focuses for writing at the moment.
Have you thought about doing? You did one about the wives who were married to Fifo workers. What about one for the women who work Fifo?
So in the Fifo Wives' Tales, that's also inclusive of women that work Fifo. So that's because the partner might be at home, but then the women are Fifo. So that's one situation that it could happen. It could be that, they both worked FIFO, but then the female stayed home to look after the kids. So there's a lot of different FIFO experiences that I guess women experience in the FIFO wives' tales.
Yeah, I know with the work that I did dealing with a lot of FIFO people, it gets quite complicated in their lives if they both do it and they got kids.
Yeah.
It's quite a juggling act.
It would be, and I think you need a lot of support for it as well, right? But then also, where do you have that couple time as well? Where do you have that time to connect as a relationship? If you're both FIFO potentially on different rosters, and then you had kids, people do it. People do it because they enjoy the lifestyle of coming home and having that time, that quality time with family and friends. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
But no, it is. I mean, easy, hard, I don't know. I think here a lot of people in Perth, they sort of grow up doing it. Dad did it, and then they do it, and it's not different.
It's their normal.
It's normal for them. That's the normal.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
only thing they debate is whether they're on a 4 and a 3 or a 5 and a 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So where's your partner? Where's he at?
He's at Cloudbreak. So he's at
Cloudbreak.
Yep.
Okay. I was telling you about earlier, one of my work, I installed the software there.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
So every time he complains about software, I can say it's Mike's fault.
He can blame it on me. Yeah. You must when you get up, ask him whether he knows a fellow called Doe Hookenboozem. That's the name you won't forget. Doe Hookenboozem.
Hookenboozem.
Hookenboozem. Yeah, it's a very fun. It's an Afrikaans name. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
He looks after all of those permitting systems up there.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Now we're doing a lot of work with them at the moment, so it's quite very interesting, particularly on the green side that they're doing that. That's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, and mining is busy at the moment, isn't it? So even in my corporate role, my portfolio sits a lot around manufacturing, mining services, transport, all of these industries. But yeah, mining is very busy at the moment. There's a lot happening in WA.
Well, when we get on to another topic, when you talk about Australia's economy, they can say all they like, but what we have is big holes in the ground and 4 banks, isn't it? That's it. They can say all they like, but that's it. Anyway, I'll stand up to argue that one if anybody wants to come on. Anyway.
It's being recorded, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'll stand up. But with your when you got your I wanted to ask you, have you probably the people from your work are watching this maybe, but there are stories you can take from any corporate environment. I mean, a lot of my stories involve around people doing bad things, fraud, money laundering, things like that. I mean, in your commercial work in banks, you either get to see it or hear about it or get case studies presented to you. I mean, there's stories sitting there.
Oh, yes, there are stories. There are some interesting stories. Yeah.
But you've never thought about.
No, I've never actually.
That.
No. I think probably because of privacy, I would have to do it under a pen name if I did it. I couldn't do it under my own name because it would be somehow identifiable. And I don't have, I mean, I do have a very unique name.
Yeah.
But there is some, I've seen fraud cases. I've seen, when it comes to director disputes, relationship ones, bullying within businesses. So you do see a lot. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
there.
but it makes it difficult. I mean, I've got a terrific story sitting in the back, but
Mm.
in my history, I spent time, doing what I do. Was in Johannesburg, and through circumstance, I wound up working for this fellow who turned out to be a gangster. He was quite a gangster, And I
Yeah,
found out suddenly in the middle of it all, and it's a hell of a good story with what actually went on.
yeah.
Because everybody thinks gangsters are just like stupid people. They're not.
Yes.
There's some very clever, creative people out there. So some of it was like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. But I can't write the story because it's a
Mm.
one of a kind instance, and he'll know immediately.
You have to do under a pen name, Mike. Have to do it under a pen
Yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But maybe one day when you're out of banking,
Yeah, maybe,
you
maybe.
can sit back and look at it.
And I think even colleagues that have been in the bank for longer than I have, or in any, I think any probably corporate industry, but when people know that I write, a lot of people tell me stories as well that they've experienced generally at work, just interesting things that have happened. Um, and I think, yeah, a lot of people have some really good stories to share, but also don't know how to share it.
But do you write these down? You like scribble them down on a notepad?
No, but I should. I've got all the good ones up here, to be honest. So maybe that's I'll go and do that. I'll go and write it because just have it somewhere on a Word document because they're very interesting.
What you may find, and sometimes I do, I've got lots of little scraps of paper, and you sometimes like put them all together and say, well, that actually
Turns into a whole story. Yeah,
that could hang together.
yeah. Be very, yeah, very dramatic story, wouldn't it? But
Yeah.
yeah, there's some
But
interesting.
have you thought about back to the kids' book with as you paint and do drawings? Is that when you write a children's book of doing the illustrations yourself?
I would love to, but it's not where my skills are at the moment. So right now, all I can do is like realism.
Why, why,
I can't do
why do you say
cartoons.
that?
I can't do cartoons yet. It's like I think a different kind of creating. I don't know, but I can't. I would have to train myself to do it, and yeah. But one day, I think one day I would love to do it. One day I will do it, but
But
I
do you
don't have
think
that.
that you could like write the story
Mm.
and then sketch out to the illustrator what you think you want?
Yeah, I could do that.
Give them the guidance as to what you want.
Yeah, yeah. Because I try to teach myself how to use Photoshop, and I found it really difficult. So I've figured that sometimes I do need to outsource work because you can't do it
No,
all. We can't do it all,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Now, I think that's an important skill to have. But I mean, I think maybe working in corporate, you learn that. You start to actually dig down inside and say, what actually is your core competency? Like, what am I actually good at?
Yeah.
It's
Let's
usually one thing, isn't it? It's one thing,
and then delegate the rest.
Yeah. Well, I always stick to the maximum. If I'm the smartest kid in the room, I'm in the wrong room.
Yeah,
So
it's true. There's a lot of knowledge
yeah.
out there. Yeah.
No, there is, and it's becoming more and more.
Mhm.
More
And I
and
find
more.
that the more that I go to learn, I think the more I realize there are so many sources of finding information too. I've probably only in the last few months realized how important YouTube is for self-teaching. My partner uses it a lot for all of his hobbies, like to learn things. And I've noticed him doing it so much that I started doing it. And yeah, there is so much of free knowledge out there as well. I think courses are, of course, important, but there's also a lot of, I think, free knowledge just to get you interested and kind of, I guess, on that right track to learn.
Well, all the adult children here do it, you know. They're also fixing their cars, anything. But I find also that with writing,
yeah,
there's a lot of it like is repetitious, and they stick to certain dogmas.
yeah,
One of my favorite ones is the moral arc. Right?
yeah.
You know the moral arc, where the protagonist, the hero, goes on a journey. He starts and then he has an epiphany, you know, and then he winds up a better person. That's kind of it, you know. He does this. He's a bad guy. It's like the old bad boy at the school meets the pretty nice girl, you know, that story. And at the end of it, you know, he's a better person, you know, and they ride off into the sunset on his Harley together, you know, that sort of thing. And when I counter it is James Bond, and they've sold quite a few of those movies.
A lot.
James Bond doesn't change. He's a super cool dude here and at the end, you know. And we're back next week, you know.
But it's the action, isn't it? That's what draws everyone in, the action.
Yeah, well, but in those sort of stories, like the ones they go on a lot about the moral arc that a person undergoes. You should read about it also. Is that, I mean, when you write about these people who are doing Fifo work, you know, what do they change as a course of this, or do they start off and they just have all these experiences, but they wind up the same? You know? I mean, when I started, my first editor was a fella in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
And he said to me at a Zoom thing, he said, "What's your protagonist's moral compass?" Thought to myself, I don't even have one. In all honesty, he said, "Have you got one, Mike?" Oh no, absolutely. You know.
What was it in the end?
Pardon?
What was it in the end? What was the moral compass?
I know that one has. It basically means that what set of values does your person have? You know, and over the course of their journey, like with your people, how does this change?
Yeah.
You know, I think with James Bond, he kills people. We know that. At the end, he's still doing it.
Yeah. But it's James Bond, so.
Exactly. Well, anyway, I think we're just about out of time here. It's been wonderful chatting to you again after our meeting down at the old Bill Manor House, just down the road here. But I wish you well in your journey as you do all of these different creative things.
Thanks.
And I'm sure that our publisher, our joint publisher, will organise another venue where we'll probably all get together.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay, cheers for that. Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.